Hey, welcome to Watchmen Waiting on the Lord. Today is December 9th. I have a lot to say today, so I'll try to get right to it. I want to start off by saying I'm not going to say the person's name, but I'm asking everyone who watches the video to pray for this person who is, and I've said a prayer for you already. You know who you are. Suffering with sexual sin, sexual lust, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. But I ask you to pray to help this person move away from pornography and all that type of stuff. I know what that feels like, and I have beaten it. That's not what I mean. Yeah, you get what I mean, right? Sorry, that was just, I'm not going to re-record either. So, yeah. Say a prayer for this person, please, because I know what it's like, right? And I have beaten it. I have beaten it. You know, in my mind, you know, when you look at a woman you lust and stuff, of course I go through that. But as far as delving into those things, no. So, what am I talking about here? Today's video is kind of R-rated a bit. Religion. It is. And so before I continue, I warn you not to watch if you don't want to hear a bit of graphic suffering. I'm sure you could hear a bit of that in my last video, and I do mention suicide, so if that bothers you, just watch my next video. This is long. And before I start getting into that, I just wanted to say, before I just had a shower. Before I had that, you know, I work out and I'm watching videos as I work out, like I just have them on. And it was like some Appalachian homestead, and you could see the lady with all, you know, all the cute lambs and stuff like that. And it makes me think, and I had to go look back exactly where it was. There's my stove, that's good. You know, back in Leviticus, back in those old days, you know, when there were still animal sacrifices, think about this. When you sin, God wanted us to know how bad sin is. You know, people today who don't love God, who don't know about God, look at sin and they're like, what are you talking about? You know, like it's nothing. But in reality, it means everything. It's our destruction. It's why we die. We chose Satan over God, and that was, you know, sin, and then, you know, Cain, murder, and so for a requirement was for those sins was for us to slay, you know, bulls and lambs, a lamb and a goat. So what does that represent? So picture this. You have a person, you know, let's say the people sin. I'm just making an example here. Let's just say you have, I forget if it's a priest. I'm going to read it though. The priest or the person, I think it's a priest, but there are other people who can do the sacrifice, I believe. Don't take me for this, but every time they sinned, they had to put their head on a beautiful, cute lamb. Like those are, you know, a lamb and a rabbit are just about as cute as they get, right? So imagine having to put to make you realize what it means to God. He's showing us what it's like for him. We have to put our hand on that lamb's head and slice its throat. And in that, our sins are transferred to that lamb. Imagine having to slay one for every time. And then obviously those ended because Jesus was he was the sacrifice for us once and for all. He beat the devil. And so you look at it now, and then the Jews in Israel now still believe, we're going to have a third temple, and they're going to do animal sacrifices again. I don't know if they will, but it's my guess that they might. They probably will. So when you look at that, just understand that they don't know anything. They don't know better, even though they're told. So what else was I going to say? I don't know how long I'm going to make this video, because I'll read this to you here. Leviticus. So it says, Leviticus 4, when the high priest sins, it gives orders. When the whole nation sins, it gives orders. When the tribal leader sins, the Lord says what. Okay, so when ordinary people sin, when any of you ordinary people disobey me without meaning to, you're still guilty. As soon as you realize what you've done, you must sacrifice a female goat that has nothing wrong with it, like Jesus, right? Nothing wrong. Lead the goat to the north side of the bronze altar and lay your hands on it, on its head, before having it killed. Then a priest will dip a finger in the blood. He'll smear some of it on each of the four corners of the altar and pour out the rest at the foot of the altar. After this, the priest will remove all the fat, just as he does when an animal is sacrificed to ask my blessing. The priest will then send the fat up in smoke with a smell that pleases me. This animal is sacrificed so that I will forgive you ordinary people when you sin. If you offer a lamb instead of a goat as a sacrifice for sin, it must be a female that has nothing wrong with it, as Jesus had nothing wrong with him, no blemish. Lead the lamb to the altar and lay your hand on its head before having it killed. The priest will dip a finger in the blood, smear. So I don't know who kills it. Could be I'll have to look further into that. I forget. The priest will dip a finger in the blood, smear some of it on each of the four corners of the altar, and pour out the rest at the foot of the altar. After this, all the fat must be removed, just as when an animal is sacrificed to ask my blessing. And the priest will send it up in smoke to me, together with the food offering. And you know what? And your sin will be forgiven. You know, when they had to burn, the body outside of the camp, that's why Jesus had to die outside of Jerusalem. Those are the parallels. So I'm just going to take a little bite here and get something on my stomach, as I have to do when I do this. And I'm going to read this, so just give me a sec. And it's not strange, is it, that, King David will be king forever, or he'll be, under Jesus. It's no wonder that he was a shepherd, right? He was guarding them. All right. This was supposed to be stay in good physical shape for God, and I will talk about that in a sec, but I want you to listen to this. So I warn you, if you don't want to hear a bit of graphic suffering, and I do mention suicide, so if that bothers you, watch my next video. I'm warning you. When I speak of suffering in my videos, it's specific to my own channel, as I suffer with acute pain disorders which affect my walk with God. I would love to, you see me going back and forth here, that's my spine. I have adhesive arachnoiditis, which is the worst pain disorder on the planet. Pain in the legs and lower back. So when you see me swaying back and forth, that's because of that, which affect my walk with God. I'd love to share with you what he's done in my life. I simply have a different view due to the magnitude of my suffering since I was 15 years old. I won't sugarcoat it. My life spiraled out of control with alcohol and drugs early in a time with no cell phones and laptops. So to give you an idea, I just turned 45. So I remember those days. When I was 24, I wanted help for one of the first times in my life for anxiety and depression from autism, which I didn't know I had, PTSD, which I didn't know I had, and took an old but dangerous antidepressant. It was called phenelzine. It was like 1950s. It was supposed to be really effective, but I got something called the serotonin syndrome, but the specialist couldn't properly identify it. And even with a hypertensive crisis, I had 2 hypertensive crises, and they still couldn't tell me that it was that. Even though it was right in front of their faces. And I was on other medications at the time, which clouded the whole picture. I had a medium level serotonin syndrome. So you can have the serotonin syndrome go for many months. But if it's like the top level serotonin syndrome, you'll die. And I'm lucky I didn't. So I had a medium level serotonin syndrome, much like the feeling of dementia at times and elation at others. I suffered repeated convulsions for months, and eventually my neck tore from the whiplash, and I ended up with full body RSD, or reflex sympathetic dystrophy, or known now as synosoplastic pain syndrome. So it's, again, that's supposed to be another disorder that's supposed to be the worst pain on earth, suicide diseases. So there's 2 suicide diseases that I have. I took myself off the antidepressant after 13 months because the pain was getting so bad. I thought there was nothing to lose. I was worried that if I took it away all those months before that something bad would happen. But I just got to the point. So i.e. the pain suicide diseases, but not just in one body part, but all over my body. My body was on fire. Burning, stabbing, throbbing, aching, shocks, bright lights, you name it. My life was intolerable. Don't worry, this isn't all going to be, this is coming to a reason and a point. Nobody I visited over 3 years could tell me what it was, my pain, or was willing to diagnose and step out on a limb to do it. I was in hell, on opiates, without an answer, which left me feeling psychologically unwell. What a horrid feeling that was. I was living daily with a high 9 out of 10 non-stop pain. I tried to take my life with suicide disease. I think it's like 50% attempt. So I'm just, I'm not shameful about it. With devastating consequences, and I got injuries that I should have died from. I read case studies on the same injury, and it's rare if anyone survives. I didn't find anyone who survived that same injury, and I'll keep that part to myself. I used to make videos all about my pain disorders, but I stopped for the most part because I was consumed. I was consuming myself with talking about pain. Everyone around me knew that God was responsible for living in terms of specialists and physicians. God didn't want you dead, is what at least 2 of those specialists said to me. You wonder why I am thin. It's because of my suicide attempt. The injury led to so many branching abdominal pain syndromes and complications that left little choice of eating. I used to weigh upwards of 175 to 190 pounds, like in great shape. Little choice of eating with no diagnosis by neglectful physicians. I didn't have any medication to treat my nausea, my colic, my pain disorders, my abdomen, so I gave up eating for about 5 years. When I say I gave up eating, I gave up eating. At max, my calories per day were maybe 200, and the same with water. It was about 200 milliliters of water. There were some days I drank 500, but that's as much as it ever went. What was I supposed to do at that point? And I was in total weakness and total intolerable pain. It was such a bad spot. I spent years telling and explaining the best I could my symptoms, but everywhere I went, nothing. I remember everything I said to them, and when I look at it today, it wasn't wrong. My life was, bad enough already before I had pain. I'm not going to hide that. I was a tortured soul and I wanted death. This is what I mean with my pain. I was 95 pounds because I gave up eating at one point because I stopped eating altogether. Then from another injury, I got a pain disorder worse than RSD-CRPS, which was supposedly the worst pain, with pain equal to terminal cancer in my lower back and legs. I was bed and couch bound for almost 10 years, getting intramuscular shots 3 times a day by my dad, going into my nerves and my thighs and my butt. Those were painful. I could barely stand up out of my bed for more than 15 seconds at a time. That's what it was like. It's like MS, the symptoms, because it has to do with the spine, but it isn't. Don't worry, this has biblical messages coming. They couldn't tell me what was wrong with my legs, though I never failed to tell them the symptoms. I couldn't walk after an injury to my coccyx. I slammed my coccyx into pavement, like really, really hard, really forceful. And within 6 months, I couldn't walk. Like I was becoming progressively disabled. The only person who could diagnose me was someone who specializes with spinal inflammation and knew the specific disorder. So it would be hard. I had to find the right person to diagnose this. This was a common theme from my birth. I had autism, but nobody helped identify it because I didn't have a lisp, as 50% of autistics do, and I didn't have intelligence loss. I described to my parents early on seizures, so I didn't have active, like they weren't, you didn't see me convulsing. They were auras. Seizure auras are seizures. I always gave the right clues. I'm not looking for friends, so I'm not ashamed here. I say this, I don't like really mentioning other people's videos, but I guess I will. Have you seen Mark the Messenger? I like him. Not to say I agree with everything he says or does, but he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and look at him. He looks pretty good. And why? Because he turned his life over to Christ. This is pretty common. There's a fine line between people who you think might have psychological illness and what it really is, the devil. It's sin. It's all the activities. You take those away, you see how a person changes. I was diagnosed when I was 13 years old with a bipolar-like illness, but labeled cyclical disorder, a milder form of bipolar. I hated psychiatrists who'd be naysayers, somewhere. They'd say, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. How do I know? I used to spend 3 days, I would 3 days and nights. I could go even longer to stay up. Every time it would, after the second night, I'd be like, well, I'm kind of tired, but I think I can do it again. And then I just didn't want to sleep because, my everything in my mind was just racing, and then that's what I'd do. They're just branching disorders from autism. I have racing thoughts, sometimes so severe, but only when I have a kidney stone. Don't ask me why it happens, it just does. The worse the colic, the worse, it speeds up. I hear music in my head, songs just nonstop. I listen to music while I work to distract me from pain. I turn to God in the Bible, not only in suffering, but always. You get my point about suffering. Imagine this, and I know there are people who watch my videos because of sexual lust problems. It's better to speak about it when it pertains to God and our salvation. Pardon me, I'm just gonna check to see if this is recording. You know, you spend like an hour doing it and you look and it won't even upload. Oh yeah, I don't have a kidney stone today again. I've been eating an orange every day. And I'll keep doing so. And thank you for the comments, by the way. I can't get to all comments, obviously, but thank you for the nice comments. So you get my point about suffering. Imagine this, and I know there are people who watch my videos because of sexual lust problems. It's better to speak about it when it pertains to God and our salvation. I got your comment from my last video about suffering. The suffering you see on the video is mostly to do with what Moderna has done to me in my like what you see in my face, the pain and like the like I got Moderna and I had like what I believe was my heart, had to do with my heart, because I woke up and I couldn't breathe. I had a rash all over my chest, all over my neck for 7 days, 6 days. And somehow I ended up with a tremendous amount of abdominal pain. And again, it was a very hard diagnosis, high to scan, and it turned out to be like pain equivalency, the same as like pancreatic cancer or a gallstone. I have that, but all the time, all the time. So I could make videos before without having to do this script. It's very hard to do without a script because it's aching so much, like right through my back. So I talk to you with acute colic from my gallbladder, like the mimic of a gallstone. Sometimes I do videos with a kidney stone, the equivalent of a gallstone in my adhesions, splenic flexure syndrome. That's why it's so tough for me to do these videos, like to stay. I don't want to be in this picture, believe me. Like I want to pace, you know? And I don't pace when I'm by myself, but I can move around. In a video, you kind of feel forced to be in it. So there's a message here. I gave up in life because I didn't know what they were. I had so many pain disorders, and I wasn't even getting one single diagnosis. I felt beat down. Like, what's going on? Like, I'm giving the right things. I'm doing the right tests. What the hell's wrong with these people? That's why I wrote a book. There's a lot in that book. I didn't know what they were. Anything was because of neglectful physicians and psychiatrists, and yes, I caused many things on my own head. We know that the internet is Satan's domain, and if anyone doesn't believe that, doesn't retain biblical knowledge. He persuades people to sin by the billions every single day. You know what I saw briefly at the end of 2 nights ago? I was bored and I turned on a program. Like I'll start turning stuff on at the end of the night, like news, and showed a video of there was multiple women dressed like prostitutes. Maybe you saw that too. In downtown London, England. I think it was London, but it was in England. It was like these women were, it's just a meetup, go out to the bar type thing, but there were like 30 of them. They were all dressed in like high class prostitute. And of course they were all attractive. That's why people took, videos. In a short space of time, they got 30 million hits. And you don't think Satan owns the internet? This is my point. The internet is garbage except for the things pertaining to God and educational purposes. I don't believe it's healthy to have messages, even to your family. But why? You may not agree with me. It was never meant that way. So imagine you didn't have that. And to all your friends, yeah, it's useful. And it's useful to sell things. But what would happen if you took it away? Do you think we would excel in our lives? We wouldn't have to think about all those things. I don't mean putting people off. That's not what I mean. It's just another distraction. And we are in the end days. When I was 20 years old, or I think I was maybe 18 or 19, when I saw the first cell phone, my friend was holding it. He got one. It wasn't the first one I ever saw, but like up close. I knew that the end of privacy was here, and this just couldn't go on. It just felt too dangerous. How are people going to have their privacy anymore? How are people going to get things done? They're all going to have it on their side all the time. What are you going to be having a shower or sitting on the toilet and you don't have excuse for people to call you? You know, like, I have nothing against staying in touch with family. It's just like, it's just not the way that it's supposed to be. I guess another person could say, well, obviously it is because it is, right? But there's a reason we're in the end days. If we didn't have all this stuff, I don't believe it would have come about. Imagine that 50%, and it is, that the internet is pornography. So why be embarrassed to discuss it? In 2009, just weeks after my injury, my coccyx, I was in my basement on the computer looking at porn in secret a lot. So I was doing it every single day. I was addicted to it and wanted sex. It was ruling half my life. I would meet women from dating sites, as is common, but it got to a point where my illness from my pain set in quickly, and I have to wonder if it was the hand of God. I'm not saying God will pour out wrath of pain on you, but I'm sure he can to chasten us. Excuse me. There's going to be a good video that I'm going to read something in my next video. You'll like it. It approaches a question of works. It's good. Listen to me carefully. All you who can't beat lust and need help. I had a series of unfortunate events that put me out for the count, like severe breathlessness, acute colic, and no more than 2 hours of sleep a night for years. I was in hell. In my bed, I'd be in and out of delirium because I was so tired and in so much pain. For weeks on end with no sleep, and over again, I wondered what was wrong, what went wrong, and what would I do if I could do it all over again? Distress doesn't explain where I was. My mother died in 2017. It shocked me in such a way that I felt more alone as my brothers were already gone. I forced myself to my feet, like I had been forcing myself to my feet since 2015, and I'd even done some things that I can only explain in my book, but so I forced myself for good on my feet and started to search for what was wrong. Like I wouldn't go back to my bed to try to rest because I would fall into bedboundness again. I moved here in 2018. I didn't get along with my dad in close quarters. I was forced to learn everything in that shape on my own and eventually through supernatural incidents. I got all my diagnoses, less about 2 of them. I worked and worked and worked to the point I'm at today. I didn't have like a credit card to my name. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have credit. But now I'm in a place, this is my own place, you know, and I have my own business. I went from a bed to a cane to a mountain bike, and I don't mean soft mountain biking either. I used to be a big mountain biker. I know how to work with my hands with many different skills that I never knew I had. I had to eat and change my diet many times over, and I upped my pain doses, got stronger mentally and physically. I want you to know that I don't make this about me, but my story untold would be a waste. I wanted to die because I was living in worse. So if my pain disorder is equal to terminal cancer, adhesive arachnoiditis, then what I'm living with is worse than terminal cancer if you add all those other things to it. And that only began when I was 24 years old. Got worse when I was 29 when I got the adhesive. Remember I said that I felt completely hopeless in my last video only 2 or 3 years ago? It was because my pain was so bad, under-medicated, untreated, unrecognized, and I was searching to die by the hands of the government to do what I thought at the time was the right way to do it. But believe me, even in these burning pains, I felt something was wrong, like a major conviction by God. I applied to get into MAID, medical assistance in dying. I'm sure you've heard a lot about that in the news, in the States or around the world. But I didn't have my diagnosis yet, so they refused me. They said, you know, if you have mental suffering, you can't, no matter what you're suffering with physically, if you have something mental, we can't do it. But they changed that law. This was 3 or more years ago. It wasn't psychological, although my pain takes a toll on that too. Have you heard through the news lately for about 2 years now about Canada and MAID? I missed getting in, guaranteed getting in, by only less than 1 year. Do you think that's a coincidence? I think what is it, like 10% of Canadians or something like that die by MAID, of the people who die in Canada per year. I forget what the stats are, but they're high. It's like 26,000 per year. I have a new view on that. I don't believe in that, okay? There are people who are suffering so much more than you think, you know, like people who go into dementias. My good friend, Johnny, went into dementia. He had Pick's disease, which is dementia, frontotemporal dementia. Poor guy. Like, you can understand why people have to do certain things, but I've come to the belief that it's not good to do it. But hey, you know, I'll just leave it there. So I missed it by a year. I felt kicked to the curb by my own country, and it led to some very desperate acts. What I mean is things that happened in my life and pertaining to the way they treated me and things that just went unnoticed. I'm not sorry that I was ripped away from chasing women and looking at all kinds of pornography and pleasure. It was empty. It was a void that couldn't be filled. Did you think after all that I would blow it away with constant pornography again? I don't mean I was an angel, but that all changed when God convicted me of my sins. And then I truly understood what it means to follow God. I still had issues moving in here, but that would soon change. God had done a great work in me, and to those around me who only remembered me being at home, not walking or in a bed, and not speaking. I wasn't speaking for a number of years. I have something like dystonia of my throat, but it doesn't sound as bad. In terms of symptoms, it's not psychological. It's called throat muscle tension dysphonia. And so I used to be able to sing and yell, but no longer can, to half the degree in pitch, loss of voice, rough sounding. Like some videos you hear my voice go completely. and loudness. I face tremendous frustration with it, especially over the phone. In these videos I make them at certain times when my throat is best with the least amount of contraction, or it can be strangled. When it's strangled, it's frustrating. It's worse on the phone. I saw a throat doctor and they put a camera in my throat while I watched it, and they had me testing certain sounds, letters, sentences to find my vocal cords are asthenic, meaning for unknown etiology they're just weak. Pardon me a sec. So with this, when I take breaks, not just to eat, but when I take a break, say like 10 or 15 seconds, it can reset it. I get so breathless, frustrated. Yeah, just give me a sec. I'm going to say more about lust in a sec. I make this video once and I'm not going to do this type of video again. Without special anticholinergic, antispasmodic drugs for my throat, my whole tract, and that's why the Moderna did to my gallbladder. So it squeezes my stomach, it does contraction in my lower esophagus, and it goes all the way up. It's very difficult. It makes my disorder much worse. So way back, I refused to speak because I became so breathless when I spoke. Every time I opened my mouth, so when I was unmedicated, when I would speak, I couldn't breathe for up to 5 minutes. Think of how frustrating that was. It was hell. Excuse me. It's just my... Listen to me, all you who lust sexually, and it applies to every lust. But I think it's quite obvious that sexual is the hardest one to beat. I know how hard it is to stop looking at pictures and videos. I believed masturbation was okay because it wasn't in the Bible except for wasted sperm, which God hates. Why? Because it's life. It's a miracle of God. Think about that, you know. Think of sperm, okay? You can laugh all you want. There's life in that. That becomes us. Speaking, talking, believing, loving. Go look that up. He hates wasted semen. I forget exactly where it is, but it is. I think everyone with a conscience feels dirty after the things that run through your imagination to get you off. I investigated all I could and listened to all kinds of Christian leaders, but never found a true consensus. I kept getting attacked by demons in my sleep, and I removed masturbation for good a year ago. They stopped by 95%. So, you know, I thought I'm in so much physical pain, so much frustration that I'm just going to masturbate and I'm going to use that for a natural painkiller. I kept giving myself those reasons in my head that it's okay. So I stopped, and the demons stopped by 95% and sleep paralysis. Isn't that an answer? These were demons of all types, and I saw one of, I don't know, it was the only one I ever had that I was actually able to look at it right in the eyes. It had black eyes, and it looked like a person. It was a woman. How do you think God views masturbation? Be honest. So can you imagine God saying, okay, Dave, it's okay, go jerk off. Seriously, think about it. Can you picture God saying that? Where I am now, I train myself, okay? You can too. So how do you beat this? I don't look twice at attractive women, okay? I don't care how attractive you are. If you're not born again and walk in the same light that I do, I'm not going to think twice about you. I'm not going to look twice. That doesn't mean I'm going to be rude to you. I don't want anything to do with you, and not to be rude, because I learned my lesson with someone who betrayed me. So I think a lot of us go through that, and it taught me what not to do. Why would I trust a woman who doesn't love God or study the Bible like me? So, you want to trust someone that's probably best. You hear Billy Graham say it. You hear a lot of people say it. Find someone who's born again. Otherwise, you might find yourself screwed over. And I don't mean not to search for men and women to marry, but that's my choice. And many born again are like that. I want someone who has my back and won't lie and willing to build and talk about God. And I'm not saying I'm ever going to marry or even look for someone in that way because of my conditions. But if I do, that's exactly what I'm going to look for. That's only theoretical, as I'm looking. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm very active and I'm always working. I can write good songs, poems, compose articles that people actually read. I publish an autobiography. I have a business. I can do martial arts, bike, all sorts of artistic expressions with my hands because God gave it back and more. Seek the kingdom first, and the rest shall be added unto you. And I don't mean that we deserve it. Seek the only one in this life for sure that you know loves you 100% with 100% certainty. Why fail the only one who will never fail you? Someone wrote a comment I saw in one of my videos like quite a while back that said something to that effect, that the only person I know who really loves me is, no one else loves me, but he's the only one I know he does. Beyonce or any of those other people couldn't make me second guess wanting as a wife or as a fling. I don't care what you think. So how do you beat sexual lust? Pardon me, I got to take a break. I'll be about 30 seconds. 42 minutes. I hope it uploads for a long video because there's still a bit to say here. I don't know how long it allows you to. But give me 30 seconds. Sorry, this is long. First, stop searching for a definitive answer. Whether it's okay to look at porn, to masturbate, okay? Stop masturbating. If you love God, stop masturbating. That's my recommendation for a born-again believer, okay? That's my recommendation. I don't care what you hear by other people, okay? If you've got a problem, you got to stop it. You have to learn. You have to teach yourself. I'm going to tell you where I am, okay? I'm not going to read that because you hear about semen retention. I'm sure you've seen like Mark the Messenger and a lot of other people. There is truth to that. You get a lot of energy back. Stop those dirty feelings. The only way to do it is to do that. I train myself to listen. You get an urge, or if you're a man, if you get, if it gets hard down there, okay? If it does, you got to train yourself not even to don't touch it. You start to train. That's how you train yourself to have control. If you're on your computer, if it's on your computer, you're going to have to learn to I can't think of the word right now because I'm just to substitute it with something else. And if it's your computer that's the problem, get off it and read the Bible. If you're serious about God, then you're going to take this seriously, because I'm going to read you a passage in a second. If you're not serious about God, then you're going to fail. If you're not serious about God, I know how hard this is, okay? Do you understand where these activities lead to? Listen to what happened to me, and I'm sure I'm far from the only one. First, semen retention is a real thing and will give you a will to do things back, strength. You're going to have to learn to go day after day after day after day. Picture this. You have in your sinful mind, you have a log, okay? You have a book. And every time you masturbate, it gets recorded in there. And it leaves like a scratch, a scar in your mind. And you just keep scarring yourself. It just keeps getting logged in there. But when you refuse to sin, nothing gets logged and you appear clean. If you think about it, if you continue to keep it clean, you're going to walk around, you're going to shine, right? Doesn't mean you're not going to go through bad things. Doesn't mean that. You're going to feel better. You're going to feel clean. And that's the born-again Christian. Staying clean constantly affects your confidence in a good way because you stay pure. These are the last days. Don't follow the crowd. Stay clean because it's safe, and don't sin because it hurts you. Like a constant dripping of water, like Chinese water torture, it builds and builds and builds. Without scripture, I couldn't have done it. I'm telling you. I was getting urges that I never had before, okay? So when I was trying to quit. And I couldn't understand what it was because it was a more overpowering thing than I ever felt. I knew it was demonic. It was the devil. I'm not wrong. I remember walking into the woods and it was getting so bad. We are weak in the eyes of God, but we have a spirit. It happened twice, and each time it lasted for about an hour. What did I do? I called out to Jesus, and I won. He won for me. But I called out. That's what you do. When you're in that moment, don't forget to do it. You have to be strong. I know how overpowering it can be. God will never let us be tempted more than we can escape. Sex is the way that Satan gets most of us. Open your Bible and become as wise as you can. Keep building your biblical knowledge. Dedicate yourself. Don't just read over it as quick as you can, okay? Try to understand it. Dedicate yourself with the wisdom of God. Remember, Scripture is foolishness to those who are dying. But to us, it's a gift of eternal life with Jesus Christ. Do you want a new life or the same old ragged life? I'm a prime example of how God can save the worst case. Not that I was, bad, but I was sinful, and he lifted me out of a quagmire from hell. I literally taught myself not to look at women twice or not to click on anything to do with, like women and all that type of stuff. There's a lot of clickbait out there. Oh, wow, attractive woman, so what, man? The only desire I feel now is possibly towards another born-again woman. It happens, but like it says, a good Christian woman is like fine gold or a rare ruby. And it's true. Stick with non-watered down Christian channels because the deception is rampant right now. There's so many lies out there. The only way to get ahead with God is praying to him and reading his word. It may take time, but it will come if you want it. This is eternal life. I tell you briefly about my struggles to show you that going that other incorrect way will land you in hell. I could literally draw a detailed chart of all the sins and where they lead, and eventually they lead to death. So it leads to one thing, to another, but it will eventually lead to death. Maybe not today. People who love God tend to live longer. I do believe that, because he keeps you out of those troublesome spots. Like out of a bar where you might get in a fight, you might get shot. I'm still going to read a passage. You need to change your mindset and make a schedule for yourself. Don't be left with nothing to do. That's what I do, because idle hands are the devil's plaything. And that's masturbation, idle talk, like busybodies. And what they say busybodies doesn't mean they're busy. They're busy with their mouths. And slander. Stop using the computer, or get a free ad blocker plus. They're free because they block a lot of ads. Learn and teach yourself not to click on clickbait titles with just about everything. That isn't good for you, which is what they are. They're bad. I'm telling you, skin deep is so shallow with no substance. And I know you have to be attracted to another person, but it doesn't always happen that way, though. If you're serious about God and wanting to end this age correctly, draw yourself to God. Read his word multiple chapters per day. Learn what those chapters mean. See, like, this is what I mean. Like, I get worse. I'm in a lot of pain now. His love for us is everlasting for those who search for it and thirst for it. I'm going to read the scripture at the end. I know how hard trying not to sin is, and I fall short of the glory just like you, but I try to keep those kinds of sins, the ones Jesus spoke about, in the mind, not in action, because those are the hardest types to beat, and we can't fully beat them, the ones in the mind, which is why we have him to help us through it, through the Spirit. He was there himself and felt every temptation and destroyed it, and that's why he won. Why didn't Jesus want his apostles to preach? Oh, this is just something I put at the end. I put an interesting thing at the end, and then I'll read the verse. So there it is. The sexually immoral don't make it into heaven. That should scare you into doing what's right. Into doing what's right. I sound like William Shatner. Why didn't Jesus want his apostles to preach to Samaria, seeing how they were part of Israel? The answer is that following the Assyrian invasion, I think it was 722 BC, their bloodlines became mixed. Remember, genealogy matters to the Bible, and that's why you see long genealogies, and why Noah was perfect in his days, referring to his genes. Okay, give me another break here. I really, really hope this uploads, and because I'll cry if it doesn't. Well, I'll just read this quickly. 1 Corinthians 6, 9 to 11. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, 9 to 11. Do not be deceived. Neither the sexually immoral, that's masturbation. That's what I believe, okay? Only you know what you're masturbating about. Only you know. So that's my belief, okay? That's my belief. I don't think it's okay. And why don't I think it's okay? Because look where it led to in my life. I mean, I know a lot of people masturbate, and I wonder how many times I've said it in this video, but neither the sexually immoral idolaters, nor adulterers, nor men who have sex with men, nor thieves, nor the greedy, drunkards, slanderers, swindlers will inherit the kingdom of God. There it is. Jesus' own, well, actually, that was Paul. But it doesn't matter. That's just, I believe Jesus said that too. So thanks for watching this video. I'm going to shut it off, and then I'm going to crawl up in a ball. Yeah, thanks. And so I take prayer requests if people want me to pray for them. I will say it out. If there are too many of them, I won't do it out on a video. But just know that I pray for you anyways. Okay. When I see that message, I pray for you, and I ask everyone to pray for that person. For I don't want to name a name. But it's a horrible thing to struggle with that, because just take a look how much stuff we have easy access to. Just imagine kids, like, imagine you're 8 years old, you have your tablet, and you can go look, and you can look at any type of sex you want. That's why this world is coming to an end. That's what I believe. Anyways, take care, have a good day. Oh, I just wanted to say, also, when you see in my videos, you see my head tilted like this, that's because my neck muscle my neck muscle was torn. It's called my sternocleidomastoid muscle. It was torn. So in my videos, if you see my head, like it looks like kind of stiff or whatever, that's why. So anyways, God bless everyone.